as a speaker Dr. Brenda. I don't know if I will pronounce it right. So it's Dr. Brenda Van Wyk. That's it? Okay. Well, Senior Lecturer and Research Associate at Pretoria University and co-chair of ICIL-Africa's Standing Committee at South Africa. And actually, Dr. Brenda, from the very first beginning, we've been working so hard on this edition. So thank you for all the efforts and the assistance she provided us. And we have as a chairperson, Ms. Dina Youssef, head of library sector at Bibliotheca Alexandrina, Egypt, and we had the chance also to have her yesterday. Well, Ms. Dina, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Maha, and thank you all for coming after this long day. I know it's been a very long day, but we are keeping you kida till the concert that we are having. We are having a very interesting concert after this session. And we are interested to, so that you all participate and enjoy the folkloric night of an Egyptian group, which is Folklorita. And I hope you'll enjoy it. I know everybody's tired, sleepy, especially after lunch. So I will try to wake you up. I don't know how, but let's help each other do that. I'm so happy to be here with Dr. Brenda. She will talk of another perspective of AI. We've been talking about AI usage, the challenges of AI, the technology, IP, different things, different topics that were very interesting throughout the day. And Dr. Brenda now will talk about the philosophy of AI, not only the practice, but also the philosophy of AI, which is also an important aspect that needs to be covered in this conference. Higher education needs open resources for researchers, but at the same time, like Dr. Hisham earlier mentioned, there is always a challenge to apply open resources and at the same time keep the IP rights and keep the rights of the authors. So we will enjoy a quick talk from Dr. Brenda, and we will be happy to have any feedback and questions from the audience to keep you up. Dr. Brenda, let me introduce you quickly. I have to read that. Dr. Brenda Van Wyk is a senior lecturer, researcher, associate, Pretoria University, South Africa, and the co-chair of ICIL-Africa Standing Committee, South Africa. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Great, thanks everyone, and thanks for attending this session. I will be very brief. I would just like to take this opportunity to share with you one of the projects that we have been busy with at the University of Pretoria. At the university, we have the African Center of Excellence of Information Ethics. So we're very much involved with further research around ethics about various aspects, including the ethics of AI. So we did a study, a scoping review, to look at the kind of research that's being published at the moment in Southern Africa, the Global South specifically. And we particularly looked at the philosophy, the practice, and what's happening in higher education, what is being published out there at the moment. So we took the definition of the UN's Trade and Development Organization in terms of what is included in the Global South and what is not. Of course, Australasia wasn't part of the study and South Korea wasn't part of the study. But then just to situate AI, to say where is it that we are at the moment, just to give us some grounding, we are acutely aware that AI has been developing the past 6 decades already. It's not something that just popped up with ChatGPT. So right from the beginning, the Turing test you might know of, that very important Dartmouth meeting with McCarthy, and I think it was 1956, not 1958, but we'll check that one. But what we have learned through time is that AI really has a social technical nature, and that everything about AI is so intertwined with our values, our life, our social structure, us as humans, so that you cannot really divorce that and only look at AI as technology. That would be a huge misnomer. So we do have challenges, and we see the challenges that has been presented over time. And as with the Gen AI that has been developed, we've seen an compounded effect and problems that we had to look at, which makes looking at ethics so very important. Okay. Right. So let's just have a look and see what is the development of AI at the moment. Oh dear. Could I get some help here? Suddenly the keys aren't working. Yeah, okay, right. So let's just quickly have a look at what is the nature of AI at the moment. No, I don't know. I'm lost.
Technology is fighting.
Technology is too much for me. I'm lost. Totally lost. You don't have a clicker.
You've been hacked.
Right. So that is basically what we. Maybe it's not me. Going back in time. But for the sake of time management, I'm going to continue. We had a look to see where is the development in terms of AI in the global south. And in essence, what we have seen is that in Brazil and South America, developments are really on par. In Africa, it looks the whole of Africa, it looks a bit different. When we look at Asia, we see that there are stark differences between really advanced AI and very problems in terms of getting AI up and running. We looked at the importance of philosophy, the philosophy of information, the philosophy of AI. And within these information booms, or AI springs, as Luciano Floridi would like to call it, we see that there's a hype around certain new developments. But as much as there is a hype, Floridi says that you also get your winters. Well, I think you will agree with me that we are not quite there in the AI winter, there where technology and developments are tapering off. We're right there in the middle of these innovative happenings. What he said, and I think he was more referring to singularity, he said, on the untestable side, some people will keep selling catastrophic forecasts with dystopian scenarios taking place in some future that is sufficiently distant to ensure that these Jeremiahs will not be around by the time they're proven wrong. Now, that might be true in terms of singularity, but in terms of the ethical problems that surrounds the global south and AI, we do need to pay attention and have a look at what is happening, because the AI ethical dilemmas, AI could really provide solutions, but if not handled correctly, if not guided correctly, it could really have detrimental effects. So that is basically where we stand at the moment with AI development within the global south. So our study then, it was a scoping review, and it came up with certain themes. I do not have the time today to discuss each and every one of this with you, so I'll just do a select few to see what was the outcomes, what is being published out there about the global south, or by the Global South on certain aspects. The philosophy, the problems around justice and inclusivity, problems around governance, maturing information societies. We are very far from that, if we have to be honest. What about human control, etc.? And where do we stand with interdisciplinarity and education? So, briefly looking at the philosophy, going back to our Greek roots, we see that philo is love, Sophia is wisdom, and we're talking about the love of wisdom. Now, this really ties in very well with the epistemology of information. What is information? What is the theory of information? But if we want to be realistic, is philosophy really neutral? How is it presented? How is it perceived? Between Western philosophy and Eastern philosophy. And we have to be honest that there will be biases and how these are being understood and used. So, but philosophy we cannot ignore, as that is really the necessary conversation that we have to have, and that will form the roots when we are studying and researching literacy, ethics, as well as AI. We cannot go, I think if we leave out the philosophy bit, we really lose grounding and what it is all about. What is good? What is the greater good? So we do see that philosophy is the cornerstone. Also when it comes to teaching AI praxis. Okay, so those moral tenets are extremely important in this very complex AI environment. For us, it is important to go back to our seminal authors, to go and have a look what is being said, and to have discourses, to disagree about these things. So these insights will help us getting forward and grounding and situating AI. If we look at the philosophy of information as a field of philosophy, looking at critical research and looking at those epistemological aspects of information, what is information, and we compare that to the philosophy of AI, you would find scholars that say that AI is better understood, the philosophy of AI is better understood in the IT environment. Okay, is that true? What about opacity? What about trust issues? How does it link with how we see and use information? And those discourses really needs to be unpacked further. As AI really holds positive answers, but we have to manage the continued inequities, the exclusions, the divides, in a very informed way. So just looking at a couple of these elements that came up as themes within the study that we did and which was also addressed quite extensively in this conference thus far, justice and inclusivity. That was one of the issues that really stood out in the articles that we evaluated. Specifically social justice. Looking at our marginalized communities in the Global South and how they have been exploited. Some of the authors really said that this gives you the impression of previous colonial tendencies and that this is being carried on if these practices of inequalities is not, or inequities, is not really addressed very well. And we do see that it can exacerbate digital environmental poverty for one, as well as digital poverty. If we look at, and this was also reported in some of the studies, look at the youth bulge. If we look at our marginalized countries, what is the component of their populations? We see a huge proportion of the population that is under 25 years old. And often we find in our developing countries that this is where your unemployment is. This is where your lack of literacies are. Okay, and that is something when we study in AI literacy and how we're going to deal with it, those are the landscape that we have to take into account. There's huge problems with digital technological extractivism, where your borderless capitalism is happening, where you have low-cost labor in the developing communities and of the global south. So your richer countries could come in and exploit the labor. Okay? The one thing that technology teaches us is how to be flexible. So if you will bear with us, we just need to keep the online audience informed as well. I'm just going to continue from here on, and I hope that they can see. So welcome to them as well. So in terms of what we saw in this study was that, number one, digital labor is a problem, and this is still contributing to divides and to inequalities, exploitation. Often you find that countries in the global south is being used for beta testing by the global north. How often do you get applications offered for free for a short while they don't tell you that they are necessarily beta testing, but you get it for free. Later on, when they've learned their lessons, the global north would probably have these very high-priced technology applications, which is very unaffordable for many people in the global south. Data mining, to what extent are the information used and mined about the global south? Monopolies, and not just monopolies from the global north, but what about some governments that are not that ethical? We hear about that all the time. So those are the problems. Another aspect that I just briefly want to touch on that came out in this study was digital identity, and how your digital identity refers to your digital footprint out there. What is your network identity? How are you portrayed? And particularly here, the AI threats of identity fake, deep fakes. We heard in some of the previous presentations that these are very prevalent, and that so much more needs to be done to work on information around that, to understand what it is that you consent to when you just tick a box just to get to the real application, and what regrets you may have if you do that. So that was quite interesting as well, that came out of this study. What was rather interesting was driving it back to higher education and what's happening about education of AI. Now, interestingly enough, all the studies that we looked at was that the education the faculties and departments, disciplines, are really looking at bringing in AI education. How is that coming into the curriculum? Whereas others not so much. For one, as one of our colleagues said earlier today, within the curriculum of information science and library studies, this is not where it should be at the moment. So that really affects how we address AI and AI literacy. Taking into account that if we look at who goes to who has the opportunity to attend universities in the global south, sorry, we see that it is very different from Canada and the UK and the USA, and that a very small portion of the population really can enroll for a bachelor's degrees. These are the statistics for bachelor's degrees. So what all these studies agreed on is that infrastructure and training needs to really be looked at. Like one of the other studies also said today, is that the pedagogical approaches needs to be looked at. Concerns about exclusion really needs to be looked at. In terms of what is information literacy, I think you're all too familiar with that already, so we're not going to spend too much time on that. when we start defining AI literacy, and we've looked at quite a couple of definitions today, we see that it is not merely seen as an extension of other literacies, and that would be a rather big mistake, such as computer literacy or digital literacy, or even information literacy. Many of the authors, specifically Inc., said that it would be a huge mistake to base AI literacy, that is of what is taken from other fields and definitions, because they are all very different and they all have different purposes. There might be tangents, and we should study those tangents, see where we're going, but we cannot, it is not a one-fit-all scenario. One of the studies then, only two of the studies looked at meta-literacy and metacognition as an approach, which is rather disappointing because, as many of the other speakers in this conference alluded to, that meta-literacy is one of the pedagogical approaches that could really close that gap and that need to bring education and how to educate, how to facilitate, how to connect with what's happening in the curriculum and at the departments. This is an ideal pedagogy that should be researched far more within the Global South. Right, good. So when, what the study said around information literacy, we saw that quite often it is equated, digital literacy is equated to AI literacy, which is a mistake. We should look far more closely at what are the elements and the components of meta-literacy, really understanding that and making it part of our in-house training as well as our professional degrees for librarians and information specialists. There is also seen from this study a lack of attention that is given to information philosophy. We tend to skip that one and go right to the practice of what is information literacy. But that, again, does not lead to a self-determined learner that will go out into the world and address some of these terrible inequalities that we are struggling with. And that is the missing link at this stage. What the study said about regulation and governance, and this really ties in also what Floridi says, is that ultimately that is our salvation. Getting the guardrails and the protection or the guidelines from governments, responsible governments in the Global South, where an emphasis on Western standards is not happening. What we did see in this study that some of the authors lamented that even intergovernmental organizations like the United Nations or UNESCO still look at the Global South with standards and expectations that is applicable to the Global North. And that needs to be addressed. The interdisciplinarity of AI and AI literacy is absolutely undisputed, and we've seen this also in this study, where there is absolutely a call to collaborate across disciplines and across sciences. That is critically important. So there's no silo research that can take us forward. It's not an ICT thing. It affects each and every one of us. So ultimately, what the goal is while we are navigating this AI world that is an absolute reality at this stage is we need to acknowledge the socio-technical nature of AI, see the human in this and the needs and what consequences there could be for our societies. So ultimately, we would prefer to be in a mature information society where there is equal access, where things are done ethically. But that is not there, and we still have a huge amount of work and research that needs to be done to move towards that. There's a lot to be done. So
are we concluding?
Yes, and this is the conclusion. What are the implications for our profession, for library and information services? It's time to act. It's time to collaborate. It's time to really work on information facilitation, specifically for AI literacy, and an upskill to do this. And it was so heartwarming to see that some of the presentations, this is exactly what is happening. So to conclude, we have to be realistic and see the landscape of the global south exactly for what it is. There is digital exclusion. There is information poverty. There is technological atrocities happening, huge atrocities. I didn't have time to go into the detail of what's happening in Congo, Ethiopia, and even Kenya with OpenAI, for instance. But we have to be aware of these things happening so that we could bring in social justice and have a holistic approach to how we address AI literacy, not just within universities, but do our bit for the mature information society out there, working towards AI justice. Okay, and then that is what I had to share. In a nutshell, there's more. Time doesn't allow for that, but I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Well, having a comparison between the global south and the global north is like a Brazil football team playing against an amateur team.
It's absolutely so.
Yes, thank you for this very interesting presentation. And let me tell you, it touched on so many important issues, the divide and bias. And I can assure you that the libraries and information institutions play a key role in this particular part, because we provide the services and the access and the equipment for those who are not able to have these facilities in their houses. So this is also a sort of inclusion and an important role that the libraries need to concentrate on and advocate for, because this is one of the things that we should stress on. I will open the floor for some questions. If we can take 2-3 questions, we are already late. But as long as we are staying till the concert, we can use the time for some questions before the sponsored session. Anyone? Who? So I'm happy that you are contributing in all sessions.
I'm so sorry if I...
no, this is so...
But it is very important issue to me.
We're happy.
Thank you. I wanted to ask when and where the decision makers will give us the guidebooks or the frame, a solid frame, how to use the AI in a good way and ethical way. And I wanted to ask about, what about the mental health? I'm very concerned about the mental health of the individuals that will down in the gap between whatever happened right now in the education, in the digital generation, and in the digital revolution. And before that, we know there is someone who really down in this gap from the industrial revolution. So I hope you can understand what I'm trying to tell you about it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Good. Basically, there are already a number of guidelines that we could use as a starting point. But again, I believe that we should have ownership of these developments, and we could look at the United Nations, we could look at the UNESCO guidelines, and there are very valuable ones. The Zillemoor principles is hot off the press. We can look at these, what is for the greater good. And then, as one of our colleagues said earlier, having standards for the global south or for yourself. That is very important. Take from what they give and with an informed body of specialists, see but what works for the global south and what doesn't, and why not, and what can you adapt. Many universities I know already have guidelines in terms of AI. I think for us as information specialists, we need to be very aware of what is happening out there. What does UNESCO say? Is it still very Western? Or what is it that will work for us? And the input of the information specialists is absolutely critical there.
You know what's ironical here is that the global south is the young, the young place of the earth. So we have the young people, we have the minds, we have the power, the energy of the youth. But I don't know, for some reason, the North, with elderly, with, I don't know, they are using the youth in our South and use it for their benefit. So they become the producers and we become only a consumer.
That's borderless capitalism. It's
yes. So it's ironical. We have some power that we are not using. We have the resources, but maybe we need strategy, policy to use the resources that we have properly or in a proper way. Somebody else?
Yes, hi. Building actually on what was just said, I'm Alia Shaddad. I'm a senior researcher at the Access to Knowledge for Development Center. It's a research center that conducts policy-oriented research on tech, data, AI in the MENA region. And recently we've been working, we've developed a platform called the MENA Observatory on Responsible AI. And we've been conducting multiple case studies and releasing a lot of content on ethical and responsible AI in the MENA region. So there are actually a few guidelines and discussions and things that have even been released by the Egyptian government on the use of AI, but there's still obviously a gap. And I wanted to know, like, as a platform for responsible AI based in the MENA region, what do you think we can do to help bridge this gap that we've been talking about? Because the platform exists, but we want it to actually be effective in addressing the things relevant to responsible AI use in the region.
Like you mentioned educating AI. This would be, I believe, a good fit.
Definitely, yes, starting with education. And again, looking at the youth bulge, I just want to go back to that one. Looking at the majority of our youth is not in universities. So we would have to think beyond our normal borders that where you think you would make the difference. But intergovernmental collaboration, absolutely, that is a starting point. So the visibility of key role players within these intergovernmental organizations, we must be visible. We must be there to voice our opinion and to drive this home to our individual regions, education systems, etc. And not only think of AI and AI literacy within higher education. That cannot possibly alleviate problems.
One last question, if there is any. If not, we can conclude and give some time to the rest of the program. Anybody? Okay. At the end, thank you, Dr. Brenda, and we were so happy to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Brenda. Thank you, Dina. And now we'll go to the sponsor session. We'll have two presentations by our gold sponsors. The first one will be about Cairn.info, new content and new functionalities. It will be given by Monsieur François Buet, Head of Institutional Relations, Africa and Middle East. Monsieur François?
Thank you to be here after 2 days of interesting conferences, and thank you to Bibliotheca to welcome us today. So today I'm going to talk to you about Kern.info. Kern.info, it's a digital platform, a digital library that has been launched in 2005 by publishers, that is owned by publishers, and that gathered today about 400 publishers. It is in French language, but it is also translated in English and in Spanish. When I say it's in French language, it's about 50% is French publishers and 50% is publishers from French-speaking countries, which is in Belgium, Switzerland, Quebec, and also Africa. So many publishers in Africa and in North Africa. In these resources, you have about half of the content which is free to access, which is open, and half of the content which is submitted to subscription. So it's half free, half open access, and half subscription. It is specialized in human science until 2022, and it has been recently enlarged to science and technology and to medicine. The resources are from the first year of university until research and professional training. So the three large sectors present on Kern are human science, including economy, management, finance, then science and technology and medicine, and the third sector is law and administration. So you have a first section in human science, a second one in technical science and medicine, and a third in law and administration. Each of those sections are translated from French to English and to Spanish. Translation in English and in Spanish, about 30 to 40% of the content is translated to English and Spanish. This is progressing. More and more content is being translated in English and in Spanish, and it's humanly translated as so far. Maybe we will move to AI translation, but this is not the case so far. About how many institutions are partners of Kern? About 300 institutions in North America, about 1,000 in Europe, 500 in Africa, and about 80 now in Asia. All the institutions that access to Kern in non-speaking countries access through the translation. Why are they so interested in being with Kern? Is because they find on the platform things they don't find on the English-speaking platform. When we look at what Americans, what Canadians, what Asian search for on Kern, we see that lots of materials are about Africa. They are very interested in what is said by Africans, by African authors, and about Africa on Cairns. Since Cairns covers about 15 French-speaking countries in Africa, there's a lot of materials concerning Africa. So on Cairn you have about now 700 journals, 22,000 books, almost 200 pocket books, and you have magazines, about 1 million articles, and 20% is renewed every year. The 400 publishers are the most expert publishers on which subjects. You have publishers from Middle East, from North Africa, from Africa. And all the journals are, you have about 20 years of archives. All the journals can be printed and can be downloaded on your computer. You have many tools to conduct your research, like You can make a list, you can do bibliography, you can quote, you can put some watch to be notified when you have new materials on your subjects. So the subjects are economy, finance, management, law, security, international relations, environment, sustainable development, energy, urbanism, architecture, industry, health, education science, agriculture, development studies, African studies, science and technology, medicine, and you can make your own lists, and the platform advise you also with already made lists on the big subjects of the moment, on the big subjects of actuality or of present research. You have thematic files, you have interviews of important authors. Every week we put new interviews of authors in which you can do a research, and we propose to the university partners to send us some interviews that we can broadcast to. In the next year, we will open 2 important partnerships, one with a platform called Technologies for Engineers, which is a very dedicated and specialized platform in engineering, and another one with a publisher called Harmattan, which is specialized in books about Africa, books written by African authors and dedicated to Africa. So, Technology of Engineers deals with all the different jobs in engineering, and Harmattan has about 8,000 titles treating about Africa and written by African authors. And in each country, they are based in 10 countries in Africa, and they publish local authors, and we will broadcast their content. We have a Facebook in which we help the partners to communicate. And to conclude, I will talk just 1 minute about intelligence IA. What will we do with IA? We are currently working on it, but what we want to do is an IA that will not answer a question, but that will lead to the authors who answer the questions. And then, so the reader will have to read by himself the articles written by the authors, and we will not gather and mix the answers of the authors. And another function we want to do is that the answers will be different depending on the level of the reader. The platform knows you because you have an account. The platform knows if you're a freshman in the university in the first year, or if you're a graduate student, or if you're a teacher. And if you ask a question, then the answer will be different depending on your profile. Thank you for your attention.
Yes. French. My name is Rafi Nakhla. You said that the material that is available on the site is French and is translated in English.
Yes.
If an English-speaking student wants to search some articles,
Yes.
does he have to search in the original language, then translated, or the search engine that is available can use English terminology directly?
He can search in English because he will go to the environment in English,
Yeah.
and then in the English environment, he will search in English.
Okay. Thank you.
He switches. Actually, you have 3 environments in the 3 languages. So you can decide to switch manually, or you can ask the platform to open automatically all the time in your language.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I think it's very, very important to have resources in French. My question has to do with what your comment at the end about using AI, but having humans answer questions. And my question is, are you going to have like an integration of both machine and human, or are they mutually exclusive? Like, are you going to have just humans answering and not using any form of AI? Or are they going to be able to integrate a little bit of AI in their answers? Because I think there's value, especially when it comes to translation, having to use natural language processing or AI in translation.
Okay, I told at the beginning that up to now all the translation was handmade. In the future, some of the translation will be automatized and done with AI, that's for sure. And of course, the answer on the AI research place, if you ask a question, the answer will be made by AI. But I mean, it will not mix what have written 2 authors. It will lead to the places in each of the author's articles in which he answers the questions. But we will not reformulate the thinking of the author. Does it make sense?
Je vais vous poser la question en français.
Je sais pas. I don't know if everybody understands.
The interpretation will work.
Okay.
Les ressources en psychologie sur Kern Info.
Il y a beaucoup de ressources. Alors, c'est une question importante. Et en fait, il y a beaucoup de ressources en psychologie. There's a lot of psychology on Kern. A lot of this is one of our most reading community are psychologists and students, researchers, and professionals in psychology, actually.
Thank you.
And there is even, to pursue the answer, there is even a special model of subscription for individual, because Kern is, the subscription is only for institution, except for psychologists, because a lot of them would leave the university and miss Kern and ask and beg almost for access. So we created a special subscription for individuals and professionals. And they access only to a corpus of psychology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monsieur François Buet. And now, I wanted to say it in French, so the French and English are conflicting in my mind. Now we'll have another presentation given also by our gold sponsor, Al-Manhal, Empowering Arabic Academic Research, Al-Manhal's Digital Evolution in an AI-Driven World, given by Mr. Rani Al-Baghdadi from Al-Manhal. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Marhaba. I'm going to give the translators a tough time, letting know I jump back and forth between Arabic and English. I'll speak quickly because there's a lot of different slides that I want to get through. I didn't want this just to be a presentation as a vendor in terms of what Al-Manhal is. I think many people know what Al-Manhal is. But we are privileged that we are at the forefront, I think, with librarians as information providers and academic information providers. We are at the forefront of this information revolution that continues to happen. So we're seeing things happening with artificial intelligence that we want to share with the group. When you talk about, well, I'll give a little bit about us. What is our vision as Kizana, the company that has made Al-Manhal? Our vision and our purpose is to get authentic academic content, المحتوى العربي, produced from the Middle East out to the rest of the world. We're talking, I heard a lot of things about global north and global south. For so long, all of the research solutions that exist are predominantly in English language, and they come and we use, all the universities use global north technologies and global north information in our universities. There's a bias. The bias existed before AI. The bias was researchers all over the world studying Middle Eastern studies, Islamic studies, are using English language Western resources in their Middle Eastern studies programs. You go to Oxford University, Cambridge University, the top universities in the world, and they're teaching Middle Eastern studies and Islamic studies, and they don't have any of the content that's produced from Cairo University, Alexandria University, Jordan University, AUB, AUC, LAU, Sultan Qaboos, or any of the other universities in the Middle East. Our mission is to disseminate Arabic academic content, and not just Arabic, content from the Middle East to the rest of the world. Kizana, the name of our company, it comes from Khaznat al-Ma'rifah, and this is at a time when the Islamic empire and the Middle East was at the center of global research and innovation. Here's some statistics, and I know everybody knows these statistics, but here are the numbers. Arabic is the 5th largest language in the world. Now at this time it's 320 native Arabic speakers, 1.1 billion secondary Arabic speakers. Arabic is the 2nd most globalized language in the world, meaning it is either the 1st language or the 2nd language spoken in a country. Now this is for a number of reasons. Number one, لأنه القرآن الكريم is in Arabic, and the Muslim world all want to learn Arabic. The second one is because of countries where I'm originally from, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, the countries of North Africa. Because of the changes in these countries, we are migrating all over the world. There are Lebanese and Syrians and Palestinians from Australia to Canada. There are Egyptians and Tunisians and Algerians and Moroccans all across Europe and the rest of the world. Where the fastest growing language in the world is Arabic. This puts things into perspective when you see French being the 3rd largest language in the world, and then it goes down from there. Arabic, this is a statistic, is what percentage of the internet is in Arabic language. 4.7% is in Arabic. We do produce a lot of online content, but it is social media content. It's on Facebook and the different networks. Now let's go to scientific content. For you to be published and indexed in Scopus or ISI, it has to be in English, or the abstract has to be in English, and you have to get accepted. So there's a bias in scientific publishing. Not only does the science I'm a researcher in Alexandria University. I publish something, let's say, diabetes in pregnancy in the Egyptian population. The chance that a Western medical journal is going to publish something so specific, it reduces the odds. Then the researcher, English is their second language. So when they're writing the article, it is written by someone whose English is not their first language. The science can be perfect, but if their English isn't perfect, it also gets rejected. So we look at the situation, and only 0.1 to 0.25% of all of the research indexed in Scopus is from the Middle East. We look at that number, and 90% of that number is in English. That means 0.01% of the research indexed in Scopus is in Arabic. So what does that mean? Where is all of the Arabic research? And how does it get exposed to the world? And that's the mission that we've been doing. Now, in order to disseminate knowledge to the world, there's been one criteria. It has to be full text search. Because for indexing engines like Google or Summon or EDS or OCLC, to index content, it needs to be in full text search, and it has to have rich metadata. So we've been doing that in Al-Manhal for 10 years, indexing Arabic full text search for 10 years. I'm going to be talking about two platforms, Al-Manhal and Abhathi. Al-Manhal, I think many of you know, it's 10 years we've been building the platform, 23,000 academic books from 700 publishers, 85% in Arabic, 10% in English from the Middle East, about 3 or 4% in French from the Middle East. 1,000 journals, nearly 450,000 articles from 1,000 journals, and then dissertations and theses and reports in all of the subjects. This is Al-Manhal. Thankfully, we have in the Middle East nearly 300 universities in the Middle East subscribe to Al-Manhal and have access to Al-Manhal. Nearly all of the biggest universities in the Middle East. We've had difficulties in Egypt for different reasons, and this is why you find us here, because we want to start working much more closely with the Egyptian universities. In the rest of the world, because Arabic is so important in Middle Eastern studies, we have some of the top universities in Europe, in North America, in Australia. We have in Cape Town. We have a couple of universities in South Africa. Universities came to us and told us, we produce a lot of research in the university. We produce books and theses and articles and journals and reports and patents. We have a brand in the university, so we started building platforms for universities to publish their own, to build their own research platforms. Like Oxford University Press has their own research platform, and Cambridge University Press. Now universities in the Middle East are coming to us, and they want us to digitize all of their content and in full text and put it on their research platform so that they can then go and give Sharjah University access to all of the other universities in the UAE. Sharjah University and different مكتب العربي للتربية ولدول الخليج، المركز الإمارات للدراسات الاستراتيجية. This is their research platforms with their content, their research output in full text. Talking about bias, this is from Perplexity. And this is, we talk about bias and what does it mean, but this was done this morning. Going into Perplexity, I asked, what is Alexandria University in Egypt's top research? And it answered me, the top research published from Alexandria University is in biology, chemistry, medicine, and engineering. Does this mean Alexandria University closed down the social science and humanities faculty? There's no political science, there's no Islamic studies, ما في قانون, ما في تربية. بس why does the AI not find this? Because all of that research from Alexandria University in Arabic is sitting in PDFs, in drawers, in different formats. It's everywhere except full text indexed and indexed in a platform. And this is why AI doesn't find it. This is what's new with us. We've been playing with this and testing this for about 9 months. This is Kizana AI. I did a search here, and it is how much, and this is trained. What does this mean? Yani, I've heard a lot of things, a couple of things here is, and this is so important, is AI literacy for students. And that is where in the information literacy departments, you'll be taking this, and I can see that you're taking this on board. And it's very important to teach our users what AI tools exist out there and the risks and the benefits and the biases, and to teach them about these tools. But something else we need to do as information providers, us as an information provider and many of you as information producers, is we have to find a way to index our research and our languages into AI, into the global AI. So when you ask how much land has been taken from the West Bank by Israel since Oslo, like I did a search here, it's not bringing me back results only from Oxford and Tel Aviv and McGill and the Western universities. It has to bring back results from the universities in Palestine, from the universities in Jordan, from the universities in Egypt, and the rest of the Middle East. That is how we unbias the playing field. This is an example that, now, so how do you do that? Research institutions, like what we're doing in Al-Manhal, we are embedding large language model into the platform for universities to train the AI just on the research from the university. So this is an example of in Kizana AI, and this is in R&D. You can expect this next year. I asked a question in English. How much land did Israel take from the West Bank since Oslo? It responded to me in English. It went through. It is trained only on our strategic studies collection. 13,000 reports from Egypt, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon mainly, and it responded to me. And you can see the references here. It took it from 6 different references. These are strategic studies reports in Arabic. I asked the question in English. It read Arabic reports from us, and it summarized. According to the available documents, since Oslo 1993, Israel has taken control of a significant amount of land from the West Bank. It's reported that Israel has declared 20% of the West Bank as a state land and has taken over hundreds of thousands of dunam of land, with Palestinians having limited access or none at all. It has the references 1, 2, 3, where you can click and you go to the primary document so that the researcher can read the full document. What does this do? Then I asked it to translate to Arabic. It translates it to Arabic. I asked it to translate to Chinese, and it translates it to Chinese. What does this do is in the Middle East, we find ourselves at we're in a very strategic and important part of the world. The 3 major monotheistic religions are from the Middle East. All of the oil, or a third of the oil and energy in the world, is from Al-Khalij. The subjects of Islamic studies, Islamic law, Middle Eastern studies, North African studies, Arab-Israeli conflict, Palestinian conflict, Turkish, Gulf and Iran, energy, oil, gas, all of these subjects that are important to the world are from the Middle East. Arabic is one of the largest languages in the world. So what is our objective with AI, and what is the opportunity for every university here that is producing research in Arabic? is that your content is in global demand. And when we take away the language barrier, meaning a researcher anywhere in the world, this is the power of AI. Someone in Spain, Portugal, in the UK, in Malaysia, they can search in their language and get results from Alexandria University or Cairo University or all the universities in the Middle East. This all of a sudden makes Arabic extremely important, and this is the mission that we're trying to do. So we want to work closely with your universities. In one way is to give access to your universities for Al-Manhal, and in the other way is to see your research and find a way to digitize it, put it into the platform, and get it to the rest of the world in this way. So thank you very much. I know I went over a little bit of time. شكراً كثير.
Do you think if we add as much content in Arabic, will be competitive to the English text that is already available? And even for researchers from the Arab region, will they use the Arabic text, the Arabic resources, or the English resources? And one thing, one more thing. Do you believe that maybe censorship could play a role in forcing these regions to produce their own researchers?
Okay, so I'll answer the questions quickly, one after the other. Al-Manhal, alhamdulillah, now more than 10 years, our statistics show that usually in a university that has Al-Manhal, we're usually the third or fourth most used platform, research platform in the university. So usually it's Elsevier, and then it is IEEE, and then it's either ProQuest or EBSCO, and then we're the fourth largest. So last year we had more than 60 million downloads on the Al-Manhal platform. So in terms of will the students use it, when you go to the social science and humanities, كلية القانون, التربية, الدراسات الإنسانية, these students in most of the universities, they're looking for Arabic content, but they're not finding it. So when we give them a platform that is that is the same international standards of research platforms, so full text searching, copy, pasting, citations, read aloud, indexed in EDS and Summon, then the usage is extremely high. It's their first language. The second question is, in terms of censorship, we haven't seen much. We have customers across all of the region. When we're happy to see is that when it's coming to research platforms, we don't find censorship. It's actually to the benefit of the country, every country, is that the research produced from their largest universities, because this is research that is aligned with the strategic objectives of the country, is that this research is digitized, and not digitized like PDF scan, digitized, full text, rich metadata, and then indexed. We used to say indexed in Google, now we have to say indexed in OpenAI, indexed in Gemini, indexed in the large language models of the world. So, yeah.
أنا الحقيقة ما عنديش سؤال بس عندي تعليق. الانترفنشن بتاعتك حسستني تاني ودي ما بتحصلش كتير بالفخر إن إحنا عرب بجد. إنك قادر تقول فلسطين مش الأرض المحتلة، إنك قادر تقول الإسرائيليان كونفليكت. ميرسي كتير بجد، يعني بجد خلتني أشعر وفخر لينا المنهل.
شكرا شكرا.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ronnie. And now comes a part that I'm expecting to be very interesting, actually. Our panel discussion with which we will close the day today. Information literacy as a maturing discipline, a revolutionary paradigm. So this panel session will have as a chairperson Dr. Clarence Maybe, Associate Dean for Learning and Chair in Information Literacy at Purdue okay, University. And I would like also to invite Dr. Karen Kaufman, Assistant Professor of Instruction at University of South Florida, Professor Serap Karbanoglu, I don't know, I pronounce it great, Professor of Information Management, and Dr. Matthew Moyo, Chief Director of Library and Information Services at Northwest University and Chair of ICIL-Africa's Standing Committee. Please join us on the stage. So we will have this very interesting panel discussion, and then we'll go to the concert. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your patience today. And we realize that in being the last session, we're holding you from going and listening to music. So, so we very much appreciate you being here. So thank you. So I am Dr. Clarence Maybe, and I am the chair of this panel, and I'm also I think of myself as a panelist, so I will join in the conversation at times as well. And of course, I'm here today, as Maha was saying, with Dr. Karen Kaufman, who is from Florida, a university in Florida, Dr. Sarab. Okay, let me try that again. So I'm here today with my very esteemed colleagues. So Dr. Sarab Karbanoglu, and Dr. Matt Moyo, who many of you know and have seen on this stage before, and Karen Kaufman and myself. And, sorry. Thank you. And so just to sort of give you a sense of, kind of how we came together. We're working on this project that's about recognizing information literacy as a discipline. And I will do a little presentation to sort of give you some of the background of things that we've looked at and thought about. And then we'll turn it over to our panelists to discuss what they see as opportunities and maybe challenges that would face us as we recognize information literacy as a discipline. So Karen and I are from the United States. Karen is from Florida and had a really hard time getting here because of Hurricane Milton. And I was sort of joking with someone that she was having trouble getting a flight, and I said, but Karen is so persistent that she will be here, and here she is. But Sarab is from Turkey, and of course Matt is from South Africa. And so before we start, actually, in thinking about our kind of identities, I'm an administrator in my libraries at Purdue University. And Matt is an administrator in his library. He's the director of the library. And Sarab and Karen are professors who teach and do research in, I hope I don't get this wrong, in library and information science, or in information literacy. But we kind of wanted to start by asking you, how many of you are librarians out in the, okay, there's some good representation for librarians. How many of you are library administrators? A couple of them, okay. And then lastly, how many of you are information literacy or library and information science researchers? And I guess there might be overlap, right, between all those roles. Okay, so thank you. Okay, so our agenda for today, I'm going to take about 15 minutes and kind of run through some ideas about this, what we're going to talk about around information literacy being recognized as a discipline, and kind of looking at the things we've looked at in the literature that brought us to this point, this conversation. And we do think of it as a conversation, right? So we're not saying, you know, we have been doing quite a bit of work presenting at conferences with different people who are involved in this work, and just sort of seeing what people say, where they, if, you know, do they agree that information literacy is a discipline? What do they think about what would happen if we started to recognize that information literacy is a discipline within our institutions? So I'll do that, and then each panelist will briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll have a question and answer period where I will ask questions, and each of them will take a turn answering it. And then hopefully, we'll still have quite a bit of time at the end for all of you to ask questions, right? And then we have a few closing thoughts for you as well. Okay, so the power of information, right, is, I mean, when I think about what I've been hearing the last 2 days and all the work that we're talking about, you know, whether it's about students or it's about sort of things happening in our societies, I think most of us would agree, I hope all of us would agree that, you know, information plays a big role in sort of advancing a lot of different things. And I think our role, right, is often to, you know, help our students, help you know, people in industry, people in government to sort of figure out what they need to do to move us forward. And I guess for my own sake, I think that conversation's really changed recently, right? It's, at least certainly in the United States, it's gotten more complex because there's so much misinformation around the election, there's misinformation around healthcare, and I think that's probably true worldwide. And so I think, you know, it's become even, like it's always been important. Information has always been important, and we understood that. But I feel like there's a growing awareness of people in the world about, you know, the importance of it, which I hope is an opportunity for us to, you know, do some things that we haven't been able to do in past decades. Okay. So we looked at the literature. And actually, in the last talk, I was thinking, you know, we, of course, this is sort of a Western focus. You'll see the citations, right, are from the UK, and there's some people from Canada who've done a lot of this work. And it would be wonderful if we could, you know, see, you know, how this conversation develops and maybe how it's happened in the past in ways that Karen and I, you know, in the US are unaware of. But Sheila Weber and Bill Johnson have been you know, doing this work for a long time, for several decades, and they're a UK research team. And as early as 1999, they proclaimed that information literacy was a discipline, and then they've written several articles over the years putting out that idea, including one in 2017 in the Journal of, it was the 10-year anniversary of the Journal of Information Literacy. And again, they made the argument that we should be thinking about information literacy as a discipline. And there are others who agree with them. So Bill Badke is a Canadian librarian, and he kind of took their work and proposed, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, kind of how we might think then more expansively about what we teach. You know, if we think of information literacy as a discipline instead of a set of skills or a set of competencies or all the different ways that we talk about it now. And then we looked at some of the literature about, you know, what are people saying disciplines are, right? And so, of course, REPCO here, you know, at its heart, is saying that, you know, it's a shared sense of ideas about knowledge, right? But then there's kind of, you know, more to it than that. So we have theories that we gravitate to, and, you know, different things that, different assumptions we make within our field that other people aren't making. And another kind of, I think it's a foundational piece about, you know, information literacy, or just sort of the notion of disciplines, is this Biglin idea where he proposed a model that said that disciplines were either, you know, if we look here, hard and pure, that would be like, you know, chemistry or physics, hard and applied, so engineering fields in particular, soft and pure, so things like English and political science and things in the humanities. And of course, what we believe information literacy falls as a soft applied discipline. So soft applied disciplines are like nursing or teaching. So it's things where often the people in that community do something within practice, but then they also research their practice, right? And so we think information literacy fits really well in that spot. And here's that work by Bill Badke from Canada, who, he said if information literacy is a discipline, that, it would have applications, right? Things that we teach students about evaluating and things, but it would also focus on methods. So what are our research methods, and do we teach those to students in our universities? How do we, think about good practices for understanding, new knowledge? And then, of course, philosophy, and that would be the theories and things like that around information literacy. And I completely recognize that there's a lot of things out there that fit into these, these sort of buckets. But I think overall we often focus on, and this is what he's saying in his article, we often focus on the application part. We teach students how to do something very practical that they can apply in their classroom. Whereas, he's proposing that maybe we have to teach, entire courses, and a lot of us don't have access to do that, I realize. But he's proposing that, we do something a little more robust, where we teach students a sort of fuller idea of how information is used in the world. So for me, that ties back to that idea of, information is empowering. I think students, it's sufficed for a long time to teach students to evaluate and to synthesize, and we still need to. But I also think that in the current world, they probably, in my opinion, need to understand sort of the landscape of information, right? That there's people using it in ways that, are going to be problematic for them, and they need to understand what that looks like and maybe where those things are coming from. Okay, so just 2 more slides, and then we'll go off to talk to our panel. So other, ideas, and really all the literature that we reviewed said very similar things, but they said disciplines are a community, and the evidence of communities are conferences and things like that, where, just like this one, where a group of experts in a field come together to discuss the research of the field, the practices of the field. But then also communication networks, so like journals, right? And there's an increasing number. There's only a few at this moment, but there are an increasing number of journals that are specifically about information literacy. A code of ethics, so it was very nice to hear Dr. Van Wyck talk about AI ethics, and I thought, that's such important work in our field for us to be thinking more expansively about kind of what are the ethics behind what we're all doing, right? Okay, and then traditions and history, and I think that one, I heard it at this conference, and often people, cite Paul Zurkowski as sort of coining the phrase information literacy. I think we know that a lot of other people were doing work like that at the time who have gone unrecognized. But I think that's one of our origin stories, right? In the US, we talk a lot about the Prague Declaration in, I think it was the early 2000s, where they sort of talked about information literacy as a human right. And things like that. And for me, those are sort of stories that, at least in my context, people talk a lot about when they start talking about information literacy. And I think of those as sort of our history, our traditions. And, of course, the modes of inquiry that we use, that we've all been talking about in our scientific sessions while we've been here. How do we, as a group of researchers, go about research? I would say that we tend to take a very humanistic focus. We're very interested in people and how they experience using information, but there's a lot more to it than that. And then lastly, shared ideas of what constitutes knowledge. And I think I've heard some criticisms around this, that in information literacy maybe we don't have that, but in my opinion, we've created a tremendous amount of, curricula, models and things that we share with students and, things that we ask students to do. And all of that collectively, right, is one example or one part of our shared knowledge. So I think that we have the elements of a discipline, and that's just sort of following up on what I said before, right? So it's sort of, for information literacy, that was, this conference for me is a wonderful example of, sort of the information literacy community in a particular region coming together, right, to work on research and teaching. Okay, so with that, and does anyone have any questions or thoughts before we move to the next part? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to get to know the panelists, the exciting part, I think. So we just wanted to give you a sort of background on what we've been thinking about and why we wanted to come here and talk to you all about it. But each panelist is going to take a few minutes, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and talk a little bit about their work with information literacy. And does anyone want to start off, or I can do that if...
Can I grab the first question?
Sorry? Well, this part is where we're going to talk for 5 minutes about our what we do.
I don't mind starting.
Okay.
I have a little presentation.
Oh, okay.
All right, I think it works. As Clarence introduced, I'm a professor of Library and Information Science from Turkey, Ankara, Hacettepe University. But I have two functions, let's say, within the information literacy. I teach it, but I am also one of the co-organizers of the European Conference on Information Literacy. And today I would like to talk about our conference because it actually helps us to understand it actually proves that information literacy is maturing as a discipline. There are many indicators. Well, I'll try to use this one, and let's see. Yes. Well, this conference launched in 2013, and we organized the first conference in Turkey, in Istanbul. Maybe some of you were there. I don't know, but at least some of our panelists were there. Since then, we organize it annually for a while. The main idea was providing a platform for our colleagues from around the globe to gather and to exchange ideas and debate and collaborate. We discussed about this with my colleague, Sonja Šipranić. She is from Zagreb University. And the idea of organizing an international conference, but which is actually held in Europe. It was born in 2011. We wanted it as an international conference, but we wanted the event happening in Europe because there was a lack of conferences on the subject in Europe, especially with a very research-focused conference. So that was the main idea. So far, we managed to organize 8 conferences. At the beginning, it was an annual conference. Then we started to do it every other year. Each year we have a team. After the second conference, we dedicated each conference to a team, and each conference organized in a different country in Europe. This is one of the indicators of, a subject being a discipline. It is the international community of scholars, and our conference helps quite a lot to prove that, because we have generally from 200 to 400 proposals each year for each conference, and we have participants so far about 60 different countries. So it's not only Europe, it's quite international, and it's a great community of scholars. And we have different committees, like the program committee. They help us to review the proposals, and we have a standing committee, and each committee has more than 100 members. And of course, we have UNESCO and IFLA patronage, and it's also quite important to show the support of these very important organizations. The structure is very, very similar with ICIL, because ICIL is our sister conference, so it's a 4-day event. We have keynote and invited speakers every day, at least one. Then we have parallel sessions. We have paper sessions for research papers, then we have best practices for practitioners, workshops, panel discussions, and also a doctoral forum. And the doctoral forum also proves that there are young researchers every year produce more and more research on the subject, so this is another very good indicator. There is also a good contribution to the growth of the literature. As you know, the growth of literature also shows that a subject is maturing as a discipline. So this is our contribution. For each conference, we produced 2 publications. One is the Book of Abstracts, and we had 8 volumes until now, and we have about 1,500 abstracts in total. And we have a proceedings book. Again, we managed to produce 8 volumes, and this is published by Springer under the CCIS serial. And we have more than 500 full-text papers, so I think that was a good contribution. And also, this citation analysis shows us that conference has a good contribution to the growth of the literature. This was carried out in 2016 by Sirya Virkos, a good colleague of ours, and she actually proved that through this analysis there was a significant growth on information literacy publications from the early 1990s to 2013, and almost half of these publications were originated from our first conference, and we were so happy to see these results. So really it was something to celebrate for us. These are the proceedings books we produced so far. It is good to see the access numbers. Thousands of people access and use these publications, and this is also great. And there are many citations. I'll try to make it quick. Oops, sorry. Doesn't work? Okay. So maybe I went too fast. How do I go back? No? Okay. Yeah. This is another thing. Research teams and collaborative research. There is also an increase in the collaborative work among our participants, and we are very happy to see that there are some even research teams. They are producing collaborative work. There are 2 examples I want to share with you because I know this very, very closely. I was a part of these teams. The first one was the Academic Reading Format International Study, and 30 countries involved in it. So we made a lot of good publications together. It's really a great contribution. Then there was another one, copyright literacy. About a dozen of countries came together, so we produced some research together. There was another research on the behavior of our participants. This was an interesting work which was carried out for a master's degree in Czechia, Czech Republic, and it shows that approximately 50% of the authors, participants, are the returning participants, and 50% of them are the new participants in ICIL, and the co-authorship patterns showed an increase in collaboration within the ICIL community. So more and more people, more and more of our participants collaborate with each other. So that is another good development. So communications networks. ICIL is a communications network, of course, and we have good collaboration with the other communication networks like ICIL, since we are sisters. And we also, I can also mention that our participants share our thoughts and make some reflections and different platforms, like Sheila Weber. She's regular participant, and she makes reflections on her blog on information literacy. I'm sure you are familiar with it. And there are some other reflections in other professional journals, which also includes the Journal of Information Literacy. So I think these are the things I want to mention about our conference and how actually it helps to prove that information literacy is actually maturing as a discipline. If you have questions, maybe I can answer later on. So better maybe we continue now. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks for listening.
Okay, Matt, would you mind telling us a little bit about your work in information literacy?
Thank you, Clarence. Thank you also, Serap, for opening the floor. Is it on now? Okay. Thank you. Right. I already thanked Serap here for opening the floor, and as such, I will not say much because we are sister conferences. And fortunately, you already know what ICIL-Africa is all about. We started following the European Conference on Information Literacy at its inception in 2013. I had a colleague who attended. I did not attend. Then in 2014, I attended with this colleague in Dubrovnik, Croatia, where we presented a paper together. Unfortunately, this colleague, Professor Ezra Ondari Okema from Kenya, passed away this year. May his soul rest in peace. So it was during the 2014 conference in Dubrovnik that we realized that there was low participation from Africa, much as we recognized the importance of information literacy in our environment. So we started to then engage with the organizers of the European Conference on Information Literacy. And the reception was quite good from Serap here and her colleagues. And they said they would support us and they would also want to come to Africa. So we said, let's observe first. And we continued to attend conferences in Europe all the way until 2018, when we then presented our concept note to say we were going to start with an international conference in Africa. And that was well supported. And in 2019, we then had our inaugural conference, and we named it the International Conference on Information Literacy in Africa. So we hosted the first conference in South Africa at Northwest University, where I work. And then COVID kicked in 2020, so we could not host another conference. So there was no conference 2020, 2021, no conference. But fortunately, I think 2021, the European counterparts proceeded with an online conference. And that then gave us an opportunity to host our second conference in 2022. And it was during that conference that we then took a decision that we needed to open this conference up to the rest of Africa. And the power of technology, we were surprised that Maha from here was the first to raise their hand. As soon as we posted a call, we saw a bid from Egypt coming through. We were quite surprised. So we presided over the bids that were submitted, and fortunately, Maha here won that bid to host this year. And there were other bids, including one from Ghana. And we said, in all fairness, let's go to Egypt first. Then from Egypt, we go to Ghana. So we have just posted our next call for 2028, ICIL-Africa 2028. It has just been posted. And we hope to be making announcements tomorrow in terms of the successful bidder for 2028. But in terms of our structure, as Sarah indicated, it's exactly the same. We have not quite published our proceedings, but rather we had identified journals where we have redirected our proceedings for possible publications, and a lot of articles have been published. I can share with you that this year we have identified 3 journals where we have encouraged participants to send their final output so that those articles can be published. I think some of the editors are here and they are busy approaching presenters with their invitations to publish in their journals. So this is how we have contributed to research outputs over the years. I'm not sure if I'm leaving anything, but like I said already, in terms of our structure, we are exactly the same as our European counterparts.
Thank you. Okay, Karen, would you please go next, and then I'll finish up.
Sure, I won't jump ahead.
I was going to say it's a very hard act to follow these two.
So good afternoon. It's so wonderful to be here. I've had the great opportunity to attend the ICIL conference twice, and this is my first time at an ICIL conference. I hope I'm saying those correctly. And it's just such a joy to get to gather together with other scholars, our community, our information literacy community, and just focus on information literacy. Talk about the things that are important to us, to our research, to our work, learn from each other, encourage each other, challenge each other, all of those things. And so it's just really been a joy. But I'm supposed to be talking about what I have done in the area of information literacy, so I will do that. I was an academic librarian. This is sort of a boots on the ground story for over 12 years, and I loved my work. And during that time, I pursued a PhD, and my research was investigating the relevance of information literacy to college students. And so I wanted to know what made information literacy relevant to the students that I was teaching the whole time. And out of that study, it sort of challenged me, the findings, what came out. There were certain factors. It was a mixed method study. So I had the quantitative data, and then I had qualitative data that sort of explained the quantitative data. And what I learned was, there were certain factors I needed to be including in what I was teaching my students if information literacy was going to be relevant. And so from that, I got a hold of, read Sheila Weber and Bill Johnston's 2017 article where they outline the elements of a discipline. And it just made so much sense to me. I was like, yes. And so I also started, after I did my research for my PhD, I started talking with faculty as if information literacy were a discipline. So when we were doing partnering and collaborating, instead of sort of coming or presenting information literacy as sort of a side gig, I started talking about it with them as if it were a discipline. sort of saying, okay, you're a chemistry prof and you're teaching chemistry. That's your discipline. But I'm a academic librarian, and my area of expertise is information literacy. And they have to know how to use the information in order to do the chemistry stuff, right? So we started working more as peers, and it was so much easier. It was just easier when I sort of embraced the identity of information literacy as a discipline. And so I now teach at the University of South Florida in the Information School. So my role has shifted a bit, but at the same time, these students are still seeking degrees in information science. And we have a master's program as well, a library and information science program. So it also has provided a way for me to sort of teach now the courses I teach, more specifically, doing that same thing, the information literacy side with the content of the course. So, so that's my story.
Thank you, Karen. Can you hear me? No. All right. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. So first off, I want to say that Karen, in her sort of infinite wisdom, was the first person to call together a group of researchers to talk about, this issue of whether information literacy should be recognized as a discipline. And at first, it was a lot of people from our doctoral, associated with our doctoral program, but it grew and grew, and soon there were quite a few practitioners, librarians, and library and information science researchers who were joining the meetings. And we invited Sheila Weber and Bill Johnson to join us, and they actually rather happily did. And it's sort of, so I really credit her with sort of taking this, sort of not being satisfied with this is the way things are, but saying, well, what could we do about it? Let's have a conversation and see where that conversation takes us. So Karen and I have sort of partnered together on the project and have done a lot of things together. One thing I think is amusing was I thought in the early days that we're both librarians, and so we brought this librarian perspective to this discussion, right? Some of the researchers were very interested in sort of, as we are too, but in sort of the scholarly argument, right, around whether information literacy is a discipline. But Karen and I were also very interested in the practical, what will this do for you in conversations with faculty, as she was just saying. So it's been a privilege to be part of that work. Quickly, so I work at Purdue University, which is in Indiana, the state of Indiana, which is in the very middle of the United States. And I've been there for, I guess, about 13 years. And until last year, I was, in fact, a librarian who, I was essentially the information literacy librarian. And I did a lot of development work where I worked with disciplinary faculty to integrate information literacy into their courses. And I think that work is extremely valuable, but then I started to think, as I looked at things going on in the world, that maybe we should focus on other things as well, or I should in my work. So what started as a bit of a joke to my boss, she asked me what we should do with information literacy, and I said we should start an institute and it should do all these things. And she kind of just gave me a look, and then 2 weeks later she said, someone gave me some funding, so let's start your institute. So the institute, which is sort of the thing I am most proud about my work, the main thing that we do is give out seed grants to research teams who are looking at information literacy, or I should say, who are looking at information problems through the lens of information literacy. We're in our second round of giving out these seed grants, and I like that we seem to have had a wider reach this time. Many more people applied for the grants, and actually maybe I would love to send the call out, and it won't be for a year, but to folks who are attending here and see if anyone's interested in the grants are about $4,000 US. So, but we also do other things. So I teach an undergraduate research course to students, and they explore an information problem. So this year they're interviewing student journalists about problems they see about information in their field. And I think the whole idea is sort of trying to do work that gets that conversation going and sort of starts to, get a wider group of people who not only know what we do, but are interested in, doing more with it. So last year with the students, we studied, I think it was social media algorithms, sort of relationship to democracy, and they interviewed their fellow students, right? And they started off saying information literacy was, I learned how to evaluate information when I was 14 years old, right? And many of them said that. And they left the class saying, wow, information literacy is so important. And so I think it's these sort of, in our work, it's sort of, maybe sometimes it's small things as well as big things that we can do that, maybe make a difference and open a door, to thinking about how information literacy is impacting in a positive way the world that we live in. Okay. So I'm gonna stop there, and then we'll switch to asking all of the panelists some questions. So give me 1 second. Okay, so as I said at the beginning, we prepared some questions to ask each of the panelists. It's not going to go. It just took a delay. Okay. So the first question. So as you, we basically just thought about different aspects of the work that we do, and thought that we would ask our panelists to reflect on and sort of think about and share with us their thoughts about essentially, teaching and research and the ways we interact with others, right, within our academy and beyond it. And so the first question is, what may change for information literacy and the work of information literacy educators if information literacy is recognized as a discipline? And I was going to ask Sarab to kick us off.
Thank you very much. Well, I think if information literacy is recognized as a discipline, there will be a lot of changes in the information literacy education. First of all, generally speaking, it is extracurricular. So it will move from extracurricular to curricular. Secondly, generally, our information literacy instruction is, or courses are elective courses. So they will become compulsory. I know there are at certain universities compulsory courses, but generally speaking, it will move from elective to compulsory, and that will be a really very good move. And generally, our courses are non-credit, although there are some, exceptions. So there will be a move from non-credit courses to credit courses. So these are all really, in my opinion, very, very good and positive moves and changes. Also, in my opinion, we will move from one-shot sessions or, couple of workshops to more organized, at least, 1 term or 1 year or a couple of year courses. So the length will change and the structure will change. Also, I think and I believe that instead of having one single course, we will start to have courses on different aspects on information literacy, like, one course on ethics, one course on information access. I don't know, you just name it, but I don't think one course will be enough, even, if it is for a year. So the structure will change. And in my opinion, these are all good changes. But also, this will affect a lot the educators. It's already mentioned that while you are teaching information literacy, of course, you need some pedagogical skills and knowledge. When the structure becomes more formal and curricular, then it will be a must. And all information literacy instructors, educators, they have to actually become quite knowledgeable and skillful on pedagogical issues, like teaching methods and techniques and assessment, or developing some assessment tools and so on. So this is one thing. The other thing is, maybe in the long run, it will turn our instruction units within the libraries to some academic units. And those colleagues who teach information literacy might need some academic positions. So it will really change a lot the educators and the way they actually instruct information literacy and the structure of information literacy sessions. So I think this is all I can say. Thank you very much.
That gives us a lot to think about. So I would just add to what you said, Surab, that at my university in the United States, we're kind of going down that path, if you will. So, and we've made some great strides, but there is sometimes discomfort. But we've started to, a few years ago, interestingly, we were asked by an administrator at the university to start developing courses, what we call courses or modules, or a longer term 4-credit course that the students would take. And we started doing that, and then of course what we realized was to actually get students to take those courses, they had to sort of be motivated to do that, right? They needed another reason, and so we're still making little incremental steps, but we have a program that is optional for them, but some are interested, where they would take 5 courses in our program, and the courses are like, information and AI, or there's, geographic information systems, GIS course, but there's also courses on more social aspects. But and as you're saying, the instructors, the librarians, are some of them are just ready to do that work, and they prefer it. They think that that's what they really want to do. They're passionate about it, and others are struggling to sort of figure out how to shift from the work that we had been doing a few years ago to what we're doing now. So it's a work in progress, but it's interesting from my standpoint. And I think there's other universities who are doing things like this, where librarians start offering a course or a couple of courses. But it's interesting sort of see the shift in that direction, and then also the challenges that it brings up that we have to address, right? Matt or Karen, did you want to add anything? Or?
Okay, I can just concur with Serap that obviously the status of not only librarians, but also the profession itself is set to improve, and even the quality of teaching and learning will also improve. Right now, in most cases, information literacy is just considered as a library thing, but once it becomes a discipline, it will receive more recognition and more respect.
Yes, I believe that will be true. I hope that is so. Karen, do you want to add anything? Or?
Just one quick follow-up to what Sarah and Matthew said, and that and Clarence, that as as information literacy is recognized as a discipline, then to prepare librarians for that work, the LAS programs, those degree programs, will also need to shift and be able to provide pathways and courses more programmatically to teach not only the elements of the discipline, but also the pedagogical teaching structure that's needed. And in our sessions, as Clarence and I and colleagues like Sarah and Matt on this project we've been on, have presented to different audiences, and that has come up from the audiences, this topic of, the sort of snowball effect of, if it's a discipline, this happens, and that means this has to happen, and other things. And so it's sort of big, but at the same time, we can take small steps, and part of that is just having these conversations.
Thank you. All right, well, we'll move on to our second question. Eventually, we'll move on to our second question, but I'm so appreciative, though, of the work that you guys do in helping us get set. So it's, essentially the same question, but focused on research, right? So what may change for information literacy research if information literacy is recognized as a discipline? And I think we're going to start off with Matt this time.
Thank you, Clarence. So just like we have noted in the case of teaching and learning, I think the quality of research in an established discipline is much more enhanced than when an area is still in an ad hoc format. It will also likely attract a lot of seasoned researchers, including also early career researchers, because it's now an established discipline. In some countries also, it will likely attract a lot of funding because now it's an established discipline. I had some few notes. The scope of research will also be widened. And I think the reputation of information literacy will also be enhanced. And in addition to this, students will begin to take information literacy more seriously. I can stop here.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I completely agree with you. And, as I was saying, in teaching this very small course of, it's less than 10 students each, it's a whole academic year, so they're with us quite a while. But when they do read the research, they really change. You can just watch them, the transformation happen, and they're so excited, about the work that we do in a way that maybe I don't think they were at the beginning. They're just sort of wondering what information literacy is about. And then by doing it themselves and seeing the challenges that people face, it really sort of makes them reflect on the significance of information literacy, in our world and society. Someone else want to add to what Matt is saying?
One more point, maybe. When information literacy completes its maturing as a discipline, I think there will be academic positions within that discipline. And those positions will require making publications, of course, because, publish or perish in every discipline. So that will also increase the, publications and research in the field, starting with the PhD research, of course, then all sorts of other publications and the number of journals in the subject and conferences. Of course, there are already journals on the subject and some conferences as this one, but I'm sure there will be an increase in that as well. Thank you. I think that's all I can add.
Sure. I do have another question I wanted to throw out to anyone who wants to take it. Is a question that Karen and I get asked on occasion is, if information literacy is a discipline, then would we have departments and PhD students studying it in our field? And I guess I wonder if anyone has an opinion about sort of, is that a direction we would go, or does that how do we feel about that? Like I have a PhD, but it's in information studies, and other people, of course, who have studied information literacy have PhDs in education currently. But there's the opportunity, I think, somewhere way down in the future that maybe we would have our own students. But
well, I hope so. I think that would be amazing. But, you know, well, I think we can also work from where we, are. And there's lots of ways to continue to build on this notion of information literacy as a discipline and, you know, work towards that ultimate goal maybe. But at the same time, you know, working within the departments that we already have is, you know, maybe a beginning. And I also just was going to add on the research side, I think if information literacy is recognized as a discipline, they'll also open doors, and this is sort of leaning into what Sarab and others have already said, that for collaboration and partnerships and things that maybe were maybe simmering, but never, you know, were published, or maybe had already been done, but were never published. And now, you know, if it's a discipline, now all of a sudden, back to our identity, I think it positions us for more collaborative types of research, interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, transdisciplinary, I mean, all the disciplinary ways you could think about it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Karen. So for the sake of time, and so we can all, let's go and listen to music and have dinner, we're gonna skip one question, but we did wanna open it up if you have questions for us. Yes, there's someone down here.
My name is Rafiq Nakhla. My question is to Karen. In an academic context where the university does not have library science as a discipline, and we want to introduce information literacy to our students, what would be the best strategy to do it?
Yes, thank you for your question. I think that's a very good one. And I guess I go back to maybe it would be in the library, or start in the library. And then maybe, you know, something would happen and it would sort of grow into opportunities for other departments, build a new department or join other departments. But I think also, and this is something Clarence and I have learned as we've talked to different audiences, is we recognize, and Clarence is going to talk a minute about a project we're on, and Matthew and Sarab are on it too. You know, and it's been mentioned in this conference that information literacy, although, you know, we have an agreement around what it is, how it looks and how it's evidenced and how it's experienced around the world may look differently. And it's big enough and bright enough to embrace all of those different perspectives and lenses and paradigms. And we can, I think, learn from each other so much as we build on those strengths, because it is different in different places. The way academic departments are structured is very different around the world. And so what it might look like in my small little everyday world is going to be different, most likely, than other places. Even Clarence and I, who live, you know, in the same country, his university structure and mine are, you know, not the same. And so recognizing we can learn from each other and build on that and still be the information literacy community, i.e. discipline, you know, is very possible. And I think also this whole AI thing is an opportunity for us to build on.
So you would suggest that the chief librarian to be the champion of such production?
If that makes sense for the structure of the institution, yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. I have a question for you, Dr. Karen. I'm Lindy Mahlangu from Northwest University. You stated that you started as an academic librarian when you were collaborating with the faculty. You said you started applying factors so that the information literacy can make sense to your students. Do you mind sharing one or two? Because I'm also a librarian and we do offer information literacy training. I also have a follow-up question for everyone. Maybe I can wait for you to answer, or must I ask?
Go ahead and answer.
I'll answer very briefly. First of all, you can go find my dissertation, and you'll see all the factors, and more than you probably want to read. But I can tell you one uber factor was the knowledge base. So this overarching factor of relevance for information literacy is what the students already know, which informed my teaching to say I'm going to use asset-based pedagogy, meaning ask students, what do you know, and that's where we're going to start, instead of a deficit-based. So that would be my very quick answer, but there are 12. We have key factors and dimensional factors, and read the dissertation.
Maybe one more
Thank you.
Quick question. No?
Sorry,
you have your
I had
follow-up.
a
I'm sorry. Go
follow-up
ahead.
Okay, so one of my collaborations is the Disability Rights Unit, where I was exposed to the universal access concept. And within universal access, there's universal design for learning. So in line with inculcating these skills within our students, there's this universal design for learning concept. Do you think it can be integrated within the information literacy pedagogy, the content we create to train students in our information literacy trainings?
Someone want to try to give it a go at answering that question? I think it's for you, Karen, actually.
It's for anyone.
Anyone? Okay.
Okay, I didn't think it was for me. But yes, the answer is yes, I do. I think universal design is a great opportunity, and I think I think there are examples of that for different courses for information literacy that have been developed. I continue to adjunct at my former institution, teaching in the health science program, an information literacy course that is required for graduation with their bachelor's degree in health science. And we use universal design to build that out.
Thank you.
Well, very quickly, we'll just close out because we're out of time. But let's see, is it going to do it? Oh, one more question. Okay, great.
Hi, thank you for all that you're doing. A quick question. Why do you think there has been a slow uptake on this idea of information literacy as a discipline? And do you think some of that is to be blamed on librarians?
Sorry. We have read things where they sort of imply that, you know, as a field, we're sort of conservative, right, in moving forward. But I mean, I think that just our position in the university has made us sort of, you know, go about things in a certain way, right? And we're at this moment of change where I think now I'm hoping that now enough librarians sort of will see the benefits of sort of thinking of information literacy in a more scholarly way, and then we can kind of shift. So, but I agree with you, it's, you know, it's interesting that, you know, this conversation, well, people brought it up, but it wasn't really a rich conversation until more recently, so thank you for that question. Okay, so I just wanted to close with saying that we have a website and we have a LinkedIn page if you want to sort of see what we're up to, members of the group. And how we all actually, one of the ways the work that brought us together is that we're working on a handbook for information literacy, and the handbook it's short entries about different kinds of things that we think are sort of evidence of information literacy being a discipline. So, there's a section that will outline a lot of the organizations that support information literacy. There's a section that will have authors talking about different theories and methods that we use in our field, et cetera. And there'll also be these chapters that will sort of lay out the broader argument for the different aspects, how information literacy meets the different aspects of a discipline. So with that, let's thank our panelists so much, please.